future Hall of Fame coaches. Who do we think are going to be future Hall of Famers? I like this topic. I think it's going to be very interesting. But I think we all kind of took the same approach that the man that you're seeing on the screen is not on any of our lists. Because it's just like saying that Nick Saban is going to make the College Football Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
Like, you automatically just throw him in there, right? Or Tom Brady. We're not going to say the future quarterbacks of the Hall of Fame. You're not going to throw Tom Brady on your list because it's automatically assumed. I couldn't believe Rice has won 8 championships. Oh, my God. All right, so let's go ahead.
Let me tell them the conference titles. Conference titles in 1934, 37, 46, 49, 53, 57, 94, and 2013.
They've got one in the last 70 years. It's fine.
Yeah. The Rice Bowl is nice, though. I'm done. All right. So, Don, we got you heading off your list.
All right. So, first up, where am I starting, Dante? Help me out. Big Red, Andy Reid. His head coaching career spans more than 2 decades. Going back to his time as head coach of the Eagles in 99. With the Eagles, he was 130, 93-1 with a 583 winning percentage. Then he took over the Chiefs as head coach in 2013. As head coach there, he has a .711 win percentage. He's 91-37 and has led the Chiefs to back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, winning 1. Do you know how many conference championships this man has been to?
Probably 1,000.
Man, I'm telling you, this guy.
That's gotta hurt too. That was gotta hurt.
Yeah.
As an Eagles fan.
As an Eagles fan, for sure. But as much as it would have been nice to win one, I'm glad he did win one. It would have been nice to have been done in Philly, but I see Andy Reid as a future Hall of Fame coach.
That's almost as bad as the teams in the early 2000s that lost. I think Wake Forest won 2 ACC championships. Imagine being that team that lost to Wake Forest. But my man Riley Skinner, though. Look at Riley Skinner. He was the man. All right. Let me get off my soapbox.
All right. You ready for the second one?
Gene says Andy Tomlin and Harbaugh.
I'm not going to say anything.
I don't think none of us have Harbaugh on our list, but I don't disagree with you. That's a really good list.
Yes, it is. All right. Pete Carroll is my next one. Entering his 12th year leading the Seattle Seahawks. His overall record is a very impressive 176-112, a 639 winning percentage. And the Seahawks have not had a losing season since 2011. And he's been in 2 Super Bowls, won 1, gave 1 away.
Ugh.
Yeah. Can he be the second coach ever in the history of the NFL to go in the Hall of Fame that's also won a national championship?
Right.
Did he win one at USC?
Yeah. Well,
he won with Matt Leinart, right?
Well, the redacted Reggie Bush one.
I like that, Gene. Yeah, I'm not necessarily a huge fan, but I think he deserves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he deserves it for just his accolades, man. The only one of 2 college coaches that have actually come over to the NFL and done well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson was number 1, and now Pete Carroll.
Yep.
Got to give it to him.
That's it. And number 3, I got Mike Tomlin. Having been hired in 2007, Mike Tomlin is the 3rd longest tenured head coach in the NFL. During his time as head coach with the Steelers, a 64% win percentage, 153, 86-1. He led the team to a victory in a Super Bowl when he was the youngest head coach to win a Super Bowl. As a head coach, he's never seen his team have a losing season in 14 years. He's led the Steelers to playoff 9 times.
Never had a losing season.
Nope.
I mean, he's had some 500s in there, but yeah. I mean, as bad as some of those Steelers teams have been.
He's a great
crazy.
coach, man. Like, just to get those guys to rally back towards the end of the season to
Yep.
prevent them from having a losing season.
Yep.
He wasn't allowing that to happen. He was like, damn, I put on the damn pads myself and go out there if I got to.
Yep.
So not a bad list, man. I actually don't you guys might disagree with my list even more because I took kind of a different approach. But
Where have I heard that before?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh
You went
my God,
You went with the
I've never heard
unorthodox
that
line
before.
of thinking. Yeah.
But I don't think you guys are going to disagree fully.
Okay.
You guys would just
Okay.
say, like,
All right.
I think there's some guys that'll get in before these guys. So
Right.
just put it like that.
Okay.
I got
All right. So, Rob, head over to
All
you,
right.
man.
So a lot of mine is very similar to Don's. So
Okay.
in addition to Bill Belichick, I exempted Big Red because I think he's that much of a lock.
Okay.
I think his body of work, he only has one Super Bowl, but I think he's as much of a lock to get in as soon as he retires as Belichick is. So I actually exempted him from my list and picked 3 other people. So number 1, I took Mike Tomlin. Again, never had a losing season. He's only the 3rd Steelers head coach since 1969.
Yeah.
Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher are obviously already Hall of Famers.
Yep.
And he's the next in line to be a Hall of Fame career Steelers coach. Yeah, he went 8-8 3 times, won the Super Bowl, went back to the AFC Championship 2010. Kind of the only knock on him is, the Steelers were so consistent for so long, but he has an 8-8 career playoff record. They were wild card berths behind the Ravens for a lot of that time, just because that Ravens teams were so good. And they got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs quite a few times. So, I mean, that's one of those things where they say, like, he's tied to this Hall of Fame quarterback for basically his entire tenure.
Yep.
And there is a bit of a knock on him.
He's not going to look so Hall of Fame this year.
Well, no. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's definitely a Hall of Fame head coach. Gene, I totally agree. He may or may not be overrated because of the talent that's been on his team, but he's also done an excellent job of managing some otherworldly egos that have run through Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And knowing when to cut ship with some of them too.
That's very true.
He knew when AB was crazy and said, see ya. He knew when Le'Veon was crazy and said, see ya. And everyone called him crazy.
But not the fact that I don't disagree with you, Gene. I disagree with you maybe 70% on that take. But then again, he was handed a damn Hall of Fame team for how many years now?
With a 15-year Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah. But what if he didn't do as well with that amount of talent on his team too?
Yeah.
Then we would not only would we not seen Mike Tomlin be around that long, but you got to be able to rally all those different personalities too, man. Through all the crazy stuff that's happened.
That's a very fair
That's the
point.
only reason I disagree with you mostly on that take, but I don't disagree at the same time. So
more Wentz chirps. Wentz is better than Ben.
My dad's trolling, bro.
He lost 3 conference title games at home. Yeah, they ran into again the peak Ravens. He ran into peak Brady. They had a tough go.
That's very true. That's a very good
AFC.
point.
Like, I mean, they had peak Peyton Manning and the Colts to run through. I mean, they lost one to the Jags his first year. They lost a playoff game to the Jaguars. It's like there's a whole bunch of teams that ran through and had a great season that knocked them out. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But they ran into the peak era of a lot of all-timers, trying to come out of the AFC.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, I give him that he had the talent. And in those down years, to what you were saying, they've never had a losing season, which is really saying something.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Your pop. I'm not a Steelers fan at all, but their last 3 coaches have all been great. Yeah, all 3 of them since 1969.
Yep.
You hang around a while if you're pretty good, right?
Yep.
That's why I was hoping for FSU, because we went from, Bobby Bowden to Jimbo Fisher, and then we signed Willie Taggart. And
all right, so moving on.
I think Mike Norvell is going to be the next one, but
hey, yeah, they got him lined up.
You got to hit a bump in the road every once in a while, I guess. All right, so you're next.
Right. Yep, number 2, Pete Carroll. So again, right along with Don here.
There we go.
he won the Super Bowl and then obviously famously lost it by not handing the ball to Marshawn Lynch. But that shouldn't be the one play that defines his career, but it's what everybody remembers. Why in the world did he call a pass there? I'm still shaking my head about it, 10 years later, whatever it was, 2014. So gosh, like 7 years later, but it still seems fresh in your head, right? Again, one knock against him. He's got an 11-10 record in the postseason. His body of work and longevity in the league warrant a Hall of Fame nod. As soon as he decides to retire. But again, I think he's underachieved in the playoffs, especially again with a decade-long Hall of Fame of quarterback. You'll notice a theme through Hall of Fame head coaches get tied to a guy that is the leader of their franchise for a decade, right? Like, Andy Reid had success with Donovan McNabb, call him what you will, and then went to KC and got Mahomes. These guys, Belichick, the greatest of all time, had the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, it's kind of funny how that works, right? It takes two. So I got to give Pete Carroll his credit, though. Again, just his outstanding record and just the consistency of Seattle playing in a tough division in the West. One or two of those other teams in that division are always really, really good. And Seattle comes out on top more often than not, so he's the defensive first guy that, has had Russell Wilson doing, enough to win.
Yep.
All right. Number 3, call it what you will, but Sean Payton, I think he's borderline. He gets in, and he's mostly only borderline because of the smear of Bountygate. He got suspended for a full season in the middle of his career. Yeah. He got suspended for a full year from the league. It was a black mark. And so, 14 seasons. He's got a 143-81 record. Made the playoffs 9 out of his 14 years. Won Super Bowl 2009, but never made it back with Drew Brees. Again, 9-8 career, 17 playoff games. They were the number 1 offense in yards 6 times and top 5 10 out of his 14 years. But again, I still hold that Bountygate's a scar on his resume, but I think he gets in when it's all said and done. I don't think it keeps him out, to be honest. I think his win percentage, his offensive mind, his leadership, and his tenure there, it gets him in. But I don't think he gets in on a first ballot, mostly because of that. And some writers are going to hold it against him.
Look at that win percentage, though. It's hard to argue that.
But
the scandal is,
call that division what you will too, because for the bulk of his tenure, you weren't dealing with world beaters in Tampa.
No, but check that division out though, just to give it its flowers. And this is going to get slated.
And that's very fair. You had MVP Cam Newton. You had peak Matt Ryan through most of his tenure.
MVP Matt Ryan.
Exactly. So he has had some competition for sure. And the home field advantage of that dome in New Orleans is not nothing.
And the Panthers went to the Super Bowl in the last 10 years. Buccaneers just went to one. Falcons just went to one. And the Saints have been to one. And the last 15. Yeah. So say what you want about that division. They produce winners, man.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, so I give him his props. He's going to get in, but I think it's going to come up when he's up for Hall of Fame. And I think it's because it was 10 years ago and everything's happened. I think people forget about it, but he was out the entire 2012 season.
Yeah.
He wasn't allowed in the building.
Gene makes a good point though. They lose a lot of home games in the playoffs.
It's true.
That's his other. If you want to give him another black eye, if you had to, that's the other one.
He's not clutch. Resume for sure.
Yeah. All right.
We'll say what you will about is again him or Drew Brees again.
I took a different approach to my coaches. I did not put on my list any coaches that are coaching now. They're all retired, or they're either coaching somewhere else, not in a head coaching position or an advisory role.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think these guys should get in. I think we need to get more coaches in based off of their body of work. And I can make a compelling argument for all three people that I have on my list. First coach up, Marty Schottenheimer. He's one of, I think, 7 or 8 coaches with over 200 wins, a 613 win percentage. And think about, I mean, we talk about teams that were a force and then just choked, kind of like the Sean Payton teams. Yeah. But think about the Chargers teams from like the late 90s up until 2007, 8-ish, around that time.
The LT years.
LT and Phillip Rivers and remember David Boston and Antonio Gates.
You had, Junior Seau on the other side of the ball.
Antonio Cromartie, they had. He was a great coach. He's one of those guys that was very hard on his players.
Yes,
but that's what he'll be known for, is the big mouth coach that's always yelling at his players and things like that. But look at his body of work, man. The 14-2 Chargers, they got smacked at home by New England.
Nobody saw that coming. Nobody.
Nope. So I had to put Marty Schottenheimer on my list. So hopefully you guys are not disagreeing with me so far. So
no, hey.
I think he'll eventually get in.
And I agree. I think he gets in.
My second one, regardless of what you say about Tom Coughlin, the man won 2 Super Bowls, has 170 wins. He's in like the top 15 in wins. And he also took a lot of those Jaguars teams and made them a powerhouse too. I mean, say what you want about Tom Coughlin. I mean, he was a pretty good coach. I gotta give him his flowers there. And
he took a wild card Giants team, ran the table, and beat Tom Brady. That's a lot.
And it's 2 teams in Jacksonville. One of them went 14-2 one season, I believe. I mean, he might have not had like powerhouse teams, but they won when they needed to, and he developed a lot of good players as well.
I'm still shaking my head.
He coached a quarterback that had that many interceptions and still won. So,
that's true.
That's about it, man.
Find 3 players that liked him. I'm not gonna say that he was a likable guy, but I can't put his accolades aside. Like, he's had some really good teams. And then this is one that I really like, and you just got to think about all the teams that he's been on. And I think like in the next 10 years, we might be hearing Mike Holmgren's name as one of those Hall of Fame coaches. I think Marty Schottenheimer definitely gets in before him. But 2 Super Bowl appearances. One that he won with the Packers when Brett Favre was on his team. And then he went up to Seattle, and you saw the Sean Alexander, Matt Hasselbeck teams that he brought a team that sucked for a long time, and then that they were pretty good, which set up pretty much Pete Carroll's teams.
He made football relevant in Seattle for sure.
Yep. He also was a really good coach and mentor on other teams like the Browns. Even when they were having terrible seasons, you never heard anything bad, and he always was trying to help develop players. But that 592 win percentage, you don't see that. You don't see the close 600s or over 600s a lot. So, I like Mike Holmgren. I think he gets in the next 10 or 15 years if he's still around.
I think the biggest thing to come out for him to be a Hall of Fame coach is looking at the coaching tree that came from him.
Yeah, he's another Andy Reid kind of guy.
Well, Andy Reid came from his tree. Andy Reid was,
and they look like brothers.
Andy Reid was Brett Favre's quarterback coach under Mike Holmgren. That's how he got his start. And so, like, all those guys that came out of Andy Reid's tree. I mean, Mike Holmgren, it goes back to Bill Walsh and the 49ers and the West Coast offense. That's where Holmgren got his start. So, like, you look at, like, the godfather is Bill Walsh, but, like, the tree of coaches that came from Mike Holmgren just points to what an excellent coach, mentor, and teacher he is. That he begat that many other future and or current Hall of Fame coaches from his tutelage. Totally agree.
Yeah. Bruce Arians is another good one, Slade, but I think he has to win like really good like the next 3 or 4 seasons. Another Super Bowl would definitely help him out, but he lost a lot. But let's call a ball, a strike a strike. This is what I think. Just to go back to Tom Coughlin, if Eli gets in, I think Tom Coughlin, next 10 years follows right after that. That's just my thoughts on it, but that might be the most controversial one. But I think if Eli gets in, then it is what it is. You gotta let Tom Coughlin.
Gene, I'll give you your credit. I did not see your comment until after I spoke, but yes, he has a phenomenal coaching tree. That's hilarious. You said it in the chat like as I brought it up.
Yeah.